Good evening. Tonight is the first time we have the opportunity to gather together this new year, and I'm really pleased to meet you all again, some old friends, some new faces, and we all gather here with the opportunity to accumulate vast stores of merit, to develop our minds and open our hearts. Something that we all have in common, in fact not just us but all beings, human and animals, we all long for happiness, a state freed of all suffering and pain. And everything we engage in, all our varying activities, whether directly related to the Dharma or mundane activities, these we all engage in so as to attain happiness and overcome problems. Recognizing that all beings want to experience only happiness, a happiness that's freed of all forms of pain and misery, not only coarse but subtle too. The Buddha taught many methods for achieving this, but they all come down to transforming our mind. It's through transforming our mind that we will experience happiness, and it's through transforming our mind that we will never experience problems or difficulties. So the purpose of receiving teachings and studying, coming to know them well, is we need to understand what these techniques are to develop happiness within our mind, and what are the techniques to transform our mind so that we don't experience suffering. So this is the purpose of the Buddha Dharma. The meaning of practicing the Buddha Dharma is to transform our mind. We can recognize this from our own lived experience. If you recall a time when your mind was relaxed and spacious, perhaps you were with loved ones, with friends, having somewhere beautiful out in nature, your mind was very spacious and calm, and you're open and receptive. But at other times, when the mind is uptight, one then finds oneself easily enraged. Just a single word, or not even a word, a tone, or perhaps the way someone looks at you. This is enough to set one off. So one can see the difference that one's state of mind makes. The mind is open and relaxed and spacious. We can much more readily deal with what we encounter, but if the mind is uptight, it doesn't take much to set us off. When reflecting on the lived condition, the lived experience of beings across the realms of cyclic existence, it's clear that those born as humans or gods have a better rebirth, have a real chance of attaining temporary happiness, and that the level of suffering is not so intense. So to accumulate the causes that will lead to another good rebirth like we have now, this comes about through accumulating virtue. And virtue is accumulated primarily through one's mental attitude, through a mind that is virtuous. So here, right at the outset, in terms of goals to aspire for, one sees the importance of taking care of one's mind, of applying practice to our mind. And then if one thinks to a goal higher than a mere good rebirth, a goal of liberation, where one attains a state freed of suffering and pain, a state of lasting happiness. The state of liberation is where one abandons all the afflictions such as anger and attachment together with their seeds completely. So clearly that comes about through developing one's mind. And the highest goal, that of Buddhahood, the state which one attains through a heartfelt, sincere determination to be of real benefit to others and thereby commits to transforming oneself. One attains Buddhahood, develops oneself towards the attainment of Buddhahood through transforming one's mind. So therefore we see that the attainment of all the goals of Buddhism, whether it's a good rebirth, whether it's liberation, or whether it's enlightenment, all comes about in dependence on taking care of our mind, transforming our mind, developing our mind. And amongst those three motivations of Buddhism, here we turn our mind to the third, the supreme motivation, which is where one develops a sincere aspiration to help others, to be of benefit to others, to ease the suffering of others, and not merely in a temporary way, but to guide them to the attainment of a state where they'll be forever free of all forms of pain, all forms of misery, a state of lasting happiness. And to bring that about, the practitioner commits to becoming a Buddha for the sake of others. This motivation is most clearly, most beautifully expressed in the text we're going to start to look at tonight, that of engaging in the Bodhisattva's way of life. To generate the appropriate motivation for this rare and precious opportunity, reflect how this world that we live in is populated by countless beings. But if you divide them into human and animal, we would have to say that humans comprise not even a fraction of a percentage of all beings in this world. And then if we were to take those human beings, those 8 billion human beings, and look amongst them, how many have an inclination to come to understand the Buddha Dharma? It's a tiny number out of that 8 billion. And of those who have an inclination towards the Buddha Dharma, how few have the time to devote to receiving teachings. And of those few who have the time to devote to receiving teachings, how many actually have the time to deeply engage with those teachings, to strive to transform their minds, not to leave the reception of teachings as mere imprints, but to actually transform their minds. We whittled down this number from 8 billion to relatively few, like a handful of all of them, in no time. So this we need to recognize and recall again and again, to recognize our great good fortune. And this then is the outset for the developing of the appropriate motivation, in particular the motivation of bodhicitta with which to receive these teachings. To take this aspiration that we have to develop bodhicitta within our own minds, there is no greater text than this. Amongst all the texts presenting bodhicitta, how to cultivate it in our own minds, if we look at all the sutras, all the commentaries, there is no greater text than this one by Shantideva. And amongst the two techniques for cultivating bodhicitta, the 6 causes and 1 effect method, and that of equalizing and exchanging self with others, the latter, that of equalizing and exchanging self with others, is presented in this text. And His Holiness himself, His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself, regularly praises this text and encourages his students, exhorts his students to study this text and contemplate, reflect, meditate on its meaning, because he says there is no greater text for developing bodhicitta in one's own heart. And he talks from his own personal experience, from when he received teachings of this in Bodh Gaya from Kunu Lama Rinpoche, and the profound impact it had on him. So His Holiness himself recounts this experience and exhorts his students to follow in his footsteps, to follow his example. Yeah, it's good to prevent a misunderstanding from arising. Because whilst His Holiness and others say there is no greater text, no better text than engaging in the Bodhisattva's way of life to generate the mind of bodhicitta within oneself, that doesn't mean that the others that present how to cultivate bodhicitta are worse. Rather, we should understand the expression or the statement that there is no greater text than this in the following way. This text contains the entire path to engage in, to cultivate both types of bodhicitta. All the practices relating to the method side, as well as those of the wisdom side, are included in this text. So therefore, we can say there is nothing greater than this text. Because many other phenomenal texts, such as fundamental wisdom, that and other texts teach only a particular topic, such as in that case, on emptiness. But the text here by Shantideva includes all the teachings on the method side, the bodhicitta side, as well as the wisdom side. So therefore, it is said that there is no better text than this to generate bodhicitta within oneself. It's not that others are worse. So, for example, in Lama Tsongkhapa's great Lamarim, the Lamarim Chemo, there, how to cultivate bodhicitta is clearly presented. The practice of the 6 perfections is clearly presented. But here in this text, there are far more reasons presented for the cultivation of bodhicitta. For example, the chapter on the praises to bodhicitta. Here we see throughout this text many reasons given to help the practitioner cultivate the understanding of or the realization of bodhicitta and the varying perfections in their continuum. The greater the depth of the teaching, the more the student has to employ in their meditation, and thereby the deeper the transformation, the deeper the realization will arise. Gosong yini di niram de chatsan komaso de jampyang di chi shuchi ki kola de yang kasong
ye ko de shuchi yorwa
in shuchi chi bato medo
shuchi chi ma de mare de pa be de de skong ko be mare
ale ken pala de
c'est à dire sur les je jamais yang shu de de ni lam tong es c'est da kan che du cha chi su yorwa
Gosong. The author of our text is Shantideva. And Shantideva was a prince. He was born as a son of a king. So he could have chosen to live a life of luxury, a life with power and influence. But he rather chose to ordain. So the reason he chose to ordain and enter the monastery of Nalanda is, amongst other reasons, he had a dream where Manjushri appeared to him. Manjushri was sitting on a throne, and Manjushri said to Shantideva in this dream, a king or a kingdom only has one throne, and your father is now abiding on that throne. You need to rather follow the life of the Dharma, and in this way you will achieve influence far greater than a king. Following this dream, then Shantideva went forth from the princely life and ordained and entered into Nalanda monastery to follow the advice of Manjushri, which was to study and contemplate, study and meditate. Shantideva followed Manjushri's advice, but he didn't do so in the usual manner. He did so in a hidden manner, secretly. So therefore, others observed his behavior and thought, this monk does nothing. He's not educated. All he does is eat, sleep, and defecate. And this, in fact, was what he was known as. He had a nickname relating to him only eating, sleeping, and defecating. So he had this reputation. So some in the monastery, well, probably many in the monastery, weren't very impressed with this lazy monk who all he ever did was eat, sleep, and go to the toilet. So they thought, actually, our monastery would be better without him. So they came up with they devised a plan so as to get him to leave the monastery. The monks took turns to present a teaching to the large assembled audience. So they told him it was now his turn to do so. And they thought that rather than humiliate himself in front of the assembled audience, where he would be exposed as being ignorant, he would rather flee the monastery. when it became known that Shantideva would be giving the Dharma teaching, many people came, many gathered, because they thought, today we're going to see quite a spectacle when this ignorant monk is forced to stand before the community and display his ignorance for everyone to behold. Dene kunde di ngola kananti tsumpi pe ko dene sungnang ikomaso di sukchi pe topo dene kun chagde mazen labme dene koso drink it labkine. But nevertheless, Shantideva came before the audience, sat upon the teaching throne, and he asked the assembled audience a question. Would you like to hear something that has been taught before, or would you like to hear something new? The audience asked for something new, something that hadn't been heard. Shantideva then, in response to their answer, he said, well, there's nothing that I can present that hasn't already been said, and moreover, there's nothing that I can say that is particularly eloquent or beautiful. That's it's very brief, the biography of Shantideva, leading up to the point of where he did present this teaching. So you can read this in a fuller account elsewhere. Kan ni danta di lecture ke chik pusung pimpe, ha? Okay. Jag menar kan yang di chaktel de sung pimpe de. Gosam. The title of the text in Sanskrit is the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara. What I'm presenting here is not to be found actually in Shantideva's text, but is rather part of a prelude. And this prelude would have been added by the original translator from Sanskrit into the Tibetan language, because it was a requirement that all translations have at the outset amongst other things, the title in the original language, so that readers of the text would know that this was a text that was originally composed in the Sanskrit language, so therefore it came from India. Then to explain each of the syllables, or perhaps the words, of the Sanskrit, match them with the Tibetan and the English. So the first is that of Bodhi, which in Tibetan is Janchup, and so this means enlightenment. The next is that of Sattva, or Tibetan Sempa. So this one can translate as spiritual warrior or courageous mind, or even hero. So those are the first two. You put them together and you have bodhisattva. So but if you separate, first is enlightenment, and the second, sempa. So there's would be, say, a courageous mind or a spiritual warrior. Then the third word would be that of charya, or in Tibetan chopa. So here in the translation I chose was that way of life, which is a more poetic way to translate the word, which is more commonly translated as behavior or activity or even deeds. So here you'll see in the different books you may have of this translation, that way of life is in some, deeds is in others, or action in others. Then the last Sanskrit word is avatara. So this is in Tibetan jukpa. So this is it can be translated as engage. It can be translated as enter or apply, or even one translator uses introduction. So there are different ways to express it.
장주 첨보의 토베의 치료 냠내 지행이 있어서 이제 자주사바 샤서와 셈파들도 장주 첨보의 상계 후보 토베의 치료 냠내 지행이 가사라도 자주사바스리 다 가는 냠내 지고를 따라야지 쥐어봐서 제주 쥐어 파지는 냠내 쥐어봐서 뒤서 따라야지 나 가는 냠내 따라야지 파지는 냠내 지고에서 냠내 지행이 그래서는 따라야지 얘는 쥐어봐요. 가르쳐봐 파지는 자주세미 쥐어봐냐면 쥐어봐서 다 아와다라 주바라고 냠내 쥐어봐라고 그래서 상기 고번 토비 치료 자주세미 쥐어봐 냠내 쥐어봐 세 달에 뒤로 채워
그렇죠. In the title of this text, Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, this actually contains the meaning of the entire text itself. So we take the first syllable, that of Bodhi or Janchup or enlightenment. So there are three differing enlightenments, small, middling and great. The small and the middling are attained respectively by hero and solitary realizer practitioners, and great enlightenment is attained by the Bodhisattva. And here, this text refers to the great enlightenment of a Bodhisattva. And who is striving to achieve this great enlightenment? That is then referred to in the next syllable, that of sattva or sempa, or the spiritual warrior that possessing a courageous mind. So this is the practitioner who is striving to achieve great enlightenment, the Bodhisattva. The third syllable, that of charya or chopa. So how does the Bodhisattva strive to achieve enlightenment? What is their behavior, their conduct, their way of life? So that is the next syllable. And what it refers to, charya or chopa, what it refers to is the six perfections. So when we read in the text title, way of life or behavior or conduct, understand that in this context, it means the six perfections, which is what the Bodhisattva practices, the previous syllable, to attain enlightenment, the first syllable, that of Bodhi. Then the very last syllable, that of avatara or Tibetan jukpa, or here translated as engaged, this just serves as a verb for the previous word, that of a way of life or behavior or deed or conduct, that makes it into a verb. So this is what is being practiced in order for the Bodhisattva to attain enlightenment. That then is the meaning of the text and the purpose of the text, the meaning of the title and the purpose of the text.
아세트 주바는 주바는 자화지 내가 제발 지고 내가 제발 아와타라스 내가 제발서 내가 제발해서 가를 내가 지고를 해도 자리야서 전주시 주바 양내 지고를 해서 자리야서 전주시 주바 전주시 주바 파진 그들이 양내 지고를 해라 수시고에서는 사도 전주시가 지고를 해라 아니 가르치도 지고를 해서는 어디서 전주시 못하게 지고를 해서 그래서 전주 산지 고방 투비 7도 전주 선박이 8주 주에 양내디 지고를 해서 다른 또 뒤셔야
Just to repeat, if you just to repeat, this is the meaning of Bodhisattva Charayavatara, reading from the back to the front. There's activity that is being engaged in, namely the 6 perfections. That is the activity, the behavior, the deeds, the way of life that is being engaged in by whom? Bodhisattvas. And for what end? For what purpose are Bodhisattvas engaging in this particular way of life? They are doing so as to attain enlightenment. That then is the meaning in brief of the title of the text. So then the Tibetan commentary goes on to give the Sanskrit and their Tibetan equivalents. So I'll just repeat that again. So Bodhisattva Charayavatara in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, is Jancha Sempa Chöpa Chukpa. And then the syllables that match, Bodhi and Jangchup, and Sattva and Sempa, and Charya and Chöpa, and Avatara and Chukpa. So again, you won't have this in any of your translations, but the Tibetan then continues with a homage expressed by the original Tibetan translator. The original Tibetan translator who translated the text from Sanskrit into Tibetan. And he offers homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And the purpose of the translator offering this homage is so as to create merit, so as to clear away all obstacles to the translation, and thereby ensure its completion. And the further reason for the homage being offered is that the translators were following an instruction from a Tibetan king that before each translation, one of three homages needs to be expressed, because whichever homage the translator utilizes will indicate of the three baskets of sutra which basket this belongs to. So if this homage was to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which shows that this text, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, belongs to the Sutra Pitaka, or the Sutra basket. If the homage had been to the Buddha, the text would have been, the reader would have known that the text belonged to the Vinaya Pitaka. And if the homage had been to Manjushri, then the reader would know that the text belongs to the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Tenchu klamla?
Tenchu shio, pichi shio, tu shu orwa, begil tu yu orwa, yuyegi tenchu shio orwa. Tambo di guru begil na orwa, di mabinya la gara Sanskrit na orwa, di tenchu shio orwa, di begil tu yu orwa. Jesa di yuyegi tenchu di jagar kebe tomkyo re chibe yinda, jagar ki du sem chigo heje. Tadi tu yuyegi tenchu di Yanagi Kabachi, Yanaki was in James, and give you Gata. Jagarki, the Lord, deep pitch, Sutobares, and Jagar Kabach to Bares and Amsa. That Yanaki was you know to cover, Gio to cover, the Guya pitch, Guya pitch, and then Yanaki Kabach to Bares. He had Boya Tandala, gave you lots of what to do. Yanaki, Yahargi basically two very two in Yahargi rules and Yanagi basically and then two very Yanagi rules and did it said yes, yes. And one bit in Shibaina and then Jamayana Chase, yes, and do it in a Tamjamba said Chase, yes, do it in a sanitation of Chase or Das, or the gave you a Gardachema to say now you're there.
So the first page of, again, this is all in the Tibetan commentary, the first page is done in accordance with the instruction of the Tibetan king of the day, where he presented, you need to state, the translator needs to state which language the text has been translated from. So here it explicitly says Sanskrit, so one knows that the text originally came from India, but if it had said Chinese, one would know the text had been composed in China. And moreover, because the homage is offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the reader will know that the text belongs to the Sutra Pitaka, rather than, say, the Abhidhamma or Vinaya Pitakas. So when one imagines having a number of texts before one, immediately when one opens the first page, one will know what the source is, where this text came from, this translation came from, or whether it's an original Tibetan language text, as well as the general subject matter. That will be clearly understandable to the reader from seeing the very first folio. So this has great benefit in that the translators all follow the edict of the king, and therefore all the texts of that time start in the same way. These days, if texts that are translated followed this tradition, I think there would be some benefit, because immediately the reader would know that this is a translation and that of what language it had been translated from and what its name was in that source language. So if it had come from English, the English name would be there. If it had come from French, the French name would be there. So this would really serve a purpose, but this isn't really followed much anymore. So just to recap there, the purpose of the translator's homage is to, in addition to what's been said, to accumulate merit, and through this merit to clear obstacles to their translation, as well as to ensure, through this merit, that their translation is successfully concluded. So now we come to the actual text by Shantideva himself, and his text, or his oral teaching, started in the similar way to what the translator does, in that it starts with a homage. So this is expressed in the first two lines. To the Sagatas, endowed with the Dharmakaya, together with their children and all who are worthy of respect, I humbly prostrate. So first we recognize here the objects to whom homage is offered. The Sagatas endowed with the Dharmakaya, together with their children and all worthy of respect. So looking at the Sanskrit word Sagata, or it's Tibetan deshek, here this has, the Tibetan has two syllables, de and shek. So the first word de, here we can understand as meaning goodness or excellence. So in general, there are many goodnesses or excellences to strive for, such as the attainment of an excellent rebirth, the attainment of the excellent state of liberation, or the attainment of the excellent state of enlightenment. And then the second syllable, that of shekpa, so this means to have gone, to go or to gone. So we put the two together and we can say gone to excellence or gone to goodness. And this refers to having attained the state of Buddhahood, a state completely free of all faults and where all good qualities are developed to the level of perfection. So again, this term de, which can be translated more commonly as goodness, but also excellence, also perfection, we can then understand here as meaning, and then with the second syllable of shekpa, referring to gone. So gone to excellence, gone to goodness, or gone to perfection. Because here in this context, it's referring to the state of Buddhahood, where all good qualities are developed to perfection and all faults have been completely eradicated. Kuna dene tama yanka songa kena di yeshichuku dango niko de kole yanka songa tang.
Mo niko la na che tam memo ba cha de che ba pang be pang ba ko den de la mo niko le ko ba che tam je mo so no to be tar chi ni yi shi de la ne chu go yi shi chu le ko ba che da ni ga le ni chu go se da yo ba chu go la de mo niko da yi shi chu ni ga ni ne di chu go da san yi ni ma do yo ma你的去过的去过这里头去过这。
So perhaps in pujas that or prayers that one recites, and in Tibetan, Der Shek you may not be so familiar with, but it's an abbreviation which you may be more familiar with, Deshin Shekpa. So this is the full word, Deshin Shekpa, before the Sanskrit of Sugata. And what it means is gone to the state of goodness. So it implies an activity. This term go or gone, this implies activity. So this implies that the state of supreme goodness, the state of perfection, Buddhahood, is attained by through practice. And who practices? A being. So therefore one can understand from the meaning of the word Sugata that it refers to a being, namely a Sugata, a Buddha, who attained this state, the state of goodness, through practice. They have gone to the state of goodness through transforming their mind. Then continuing in the first line, to the Sagatas endowed with the Dharmakaya. So the bodies of a Buddha can be divided in differing ways. So one is into 4, another is into 3, another is into 2. And if one condenses, one just has this division into 2, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. So the wisdom bodies and the form bodies. So here it's explicitly referring to the Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya has its own 2 divisions, the nature truth body and the wisdom truth body. The nature truth body is the state of the state of abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds and imprints. It is the true cessations. The other Dharmakaya, the wisdom truth body, this is the wisdom realizing emptiness and is the true paths. So these are the 2 Dharmakayas, the nature truth body and the wisdom truth body. And it's only a Buddha that possesses the Dharmakaya. Then we have endowed with the Dharmakaya, so endowed with or possess. This means that something has been attained, something is possessed or attained on the continuum of the being. So who possesses the Dharmakaya, who is endowed with the Dharmakaya? Only the Buddha has attained a state where all the afflictions together with the seeds and imprints have been completely eradicated and have developed an omniscient consciousness. So the Sagatas endowed with the Dharmakaya together with their children. The term translated here as children is the normal honorific word for children, and it's usually used in the context of the children of royalty, so princes and princesses. But in the context of the Dharma, it refers to Bodhisattvas, and here in particular, it refers to Arya Bodhisattvas, seeing that the Arya Bodhisattvas are those who are closest to the attainment of Buddhahood, who are currently striving for and are close to attaining Buddhahood. So together with their children refers here to Arya Bodhisattvas. Di kosong ini kenantanda chuku de gagi chuk ini di konchok suma di kosong ini di kari chuki konchok de kari ini mina sumpingbe lab kiere. This first line here is Shantideva offering homage to the Sagatas who are endowed with the Dharmakaya together with their children. Here he's actually offering homage in this first line to the three jewels, and in particular to the unique three jewels of the Mahayana. This is the hearers and solitary realizers are not to be found here at all in terms of any of the three jewels. So this expression here to the Sagatas endowed with the Dharmakaya together with their children, this refers to the three jewels, but in particular a unique presentation, or the unique presentation of the Mahayana. The three jewels can be expressed in the unique way of the Mahayana, as is the case here, or in the more common ways. The more common way that one is used to hearing is that the Buddha jewel will refer to the Buddhas. The Sangha jewel will refer to all Arya beings, whether hero or solitary realizer or bodhisattva, all three of them. And then the Dharma jewel will be the true paths and true cessations in their continuums, the continuums of all Arya beings, whether hero, solitary realizer, bodhisattva, or Buddha. Whereas the unique three jewels of the Mahayana, the Buddha jewel refers again just to Buddhas, but the Sangha jewel refers solely to Arya bodhisattvas, and then the Dharma jewel refers solely to true cessations and true paths in the continuum of Arya bodhisattvas and Arya Buddhas. So therefore, there's a difference that is the difference in the unique the three jewels that are unique to the Mahayana. And to repeat that, for the Buddha jewel, which again refers to Buddhas, but for the Sangha jewel, it only refers to Arya bodhisattvas. And then for the Dharma jewel, it only refers to true cessations and true paths within the continuum of Arya bodhisattvas and Arya Buddhas. So the purpose of having three jewels that are unique to the Mahayana is because it's only bodhisattvas who would go for refuge in this way, because it's bodhisattvas who share the aspiration of the Sangha jewel, the Arya bodhisattvas, which is to develop the true paths and true cessations in their continuum of Arya Bodhisattvas and Arya Buddhas and attain the state of Buddhahood. It is Bodhisattvas who hold this as their goal. And the reason that Shantideva explicitly states these three unique Mahayana jewels at the outset is because the purpose of his teaching is an exposition of the way of life of Bodhisattvas, or the conduct or behavior of Bodhisattvas. Therefore, he expresses refuge in the way that Bodhisattvas go for refuge. In the second line, Shantideva expands to whom he offers homage. So here we see, to all who are worthy of respect, I humbly prostrate. So in the first line was specifically to the unique three jewels of the Mahayana, and then in the second line, he expands this out to all others who are worthy of homage. So the end of the second line in Tibetan is a particle which isn't translated, and is a particle that isn't ever translated, but it implies that now, having gone for homage, there is continuation. Something now else is going to happen. Yeah, in these first two lines, Shantideva offers first homage to the unique three Mahayana jewels, as well as then to all others who are worthy of respect, such as lamas and abbots. And the purpose, again, just like previously, of having a homage, of paying one's respect, is to accumulate merit for the purpose of this teaching, there being all obstacles to this teaching being overcome, as well as for this teaching to be completed, this teaching he was about to present to his audience.
Dandala, Manado, Lobsang Dorje, Shula, because I'm going to I mean, too much is Tabachi, too long, getting condition that Jackson, Jackson, Charles, General Children, and so many other side guests. Then I did it, and so and judges the children and then you buy a key and then you do buy a poem and then I did the Yamachiaya and the other. It's Yavana, very truly said. Dandala, shoot at the Sumo.
So here, as we embark on this text, and the first of more than 900 verses, the way to approach this text, as with all others, is to receive the teaching as personal instruction, not as a mere academic accumulation of knowledge, but as personal advice. So therefore, what we've just seen in these first two lines, we should take as guidance on how we should go for refuge, how we should, or to whom we should address our prayers of aspiration, to whom we should engage in accumulating virtue. We too should go to refuge to the unique Mahayana three jewels, following the example of Shantideva, and doing so for the same reason, to accumulate merit so as to overcome obstacles in our mental development and to bring our mental development to completion, to perfection. Because the purpose of receiving these teachings is to integrate them into our heart. And we do this through our various meditations, our practice. And the purpose of Buddhist practice, as we heard, as I said at the outset of our talk, is to transform our mind. And to transform our mind quickly comes about in dependence on the accumulation of our stores of merit. And therefore, by going for refuge or paying homage in the way that Shantideva has here, following his example, taking his example as personal advice, we will achieve our goal of transforming our mind radically, so much more quickly. Here now Shantideva makes a promise, a commitment. I here now will present the stages of training of a bodhisattva for those who want to engage in the way of life, the lifestyle of bodhisattvas. These are the stages to train your mind in, and I will present these clearly. But we'll conclude there for this week and start from the same point with this promise next time.